Hi, welcome to this little I guess, demo, an opportunity for us to start concentrating on what might be important as we move on later. There'll be a lot of drawing I hope to do, and I want to just give you a few little things that are probably so much more important than you may think, and very integral to realism, contour, depth, curve, and so I want to be able to just introduce some things you might not think are really that important, but it's going to make all the difference if you can take the effort to practice them, learn how to see. This is what it's about too, is really having the opportunity to see, teaching yourself to be very sensitive to certain things. And there's a lot of sensitivity, both from being able to notice what's going on, to be able to look for certain things. That's going to guide what you're going to be able to accomplish with your hand and your pencil. And in the long run, again, it is going to be a powerful opportunity for you to make the most out of your drawings, whatever level you happen to be drawing. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use a little bit darker pencil. I'm not going to worry about the normal sequence of gradations that I use. And I'm going to just show you a few elements that I think will really give you an opportunity later. I'm using an HB. I went ahead and colored these pencils because I'm using something different than what was originally the pencil I used to use. And so I'm going to also do a pencil test later, and we're going to go ahead and have the opportunity to find out what are some of the better pencils. I did a test some years ago, and I think some things have changed. And so I want to have that opportunity, to find that new one, maybe even discard one that we don't really want to use. But I am going to show you what I call the tapered stroke. And I'm not going to get into it really in depth, but it is a sweep across your paper, and that is going to give you the opportunity to make a stroke that has so much more than just a line. This is just drawing a line, all the same value all the way along. And yet when you try to do something very contrived like this, and you're trying to control your pencil, you don't have the advantage to have that flow and grace. There's just a wonderful a grace to a stroke that comes on in more of a sweep. And you'll notice that this is no longer jagged and bumpy, I guess. And I have so much more versatility with this stroke. It's called a tapered stroke. It's one I've used for ever since I was a teenager. And one of the things that helps you later on, you'll understand why these ends are tapered. You'll notice how it gets lighter and lighter, and it goes off into a very skinny end. And the same thing with this. There's a gradation. It goes from the darkest part of the stroke and out, lighter, lighter, and then it's able to blend into something, make a great start without having something so abrupt, and you have a chance to regulate how dark something's going to be. How hard you're pushing is something I want to talk to you about, but you can see my hand. I'm not at the side, and I'll try to do that maybe in the next lesson. But this is a opportunity to put my heel down on the paper, and I want to be able to start my stroke a little before I am hitting the paper, and I want to land. And then I want to just touch down for just a minute and take off again. So let's go ahead and see what happens. So you can see I have the same activity here. It's getting lighter, and usually this, when you're sweeping off of the paper, when you're taking, like an airplane, you're taking off, this is usually a little longer than that abrupt landing, and that's the one you want to practice as much as you can to make sure that you have, again, this pointed end, and it comes down into the lightest value for that pencil, and it gets the darkest value you're going to have, and then it takes off. I want to make sure that I'm always regulating how much pressure. So one of the things that we're going to want to do is we want to make sure that our pressure is consistent. Sorry to take that time. Didn't expect it to be, quite that out of focus. And you can see why. This is a pretty thin line. It's a very exacting line, and yet it, again, is just an easy stroke to make. Well, after a while, you're going to learn how to control this. But one of the things that I want you to notice is that range of value again. Almost everything I do with my drawings is going to give me a range of value. not even a flat surface has a completely solid color. And I want to be able to show those gradations so that we can liven up our drawings and give them the contour and depth that are going to make them dynamic, powerful. And then there's many ways that a gradation, which we'll call this range of value as I've gone through my stroke, I want to be able to, again, land it, gliding onto the paper. I want to be able to put my heel down on here and let this just, not my heel. If you go like this, it's going to make it harder and harder to be an exact stroke. But I want to be able to have this become a stabling factor, and then I can go ahead and I can even have that like a compass stroke. And so I have the opportunity then to put one next to the other, and I can create, again, a gradation. So let's go ahead and come over here in the middle and see what we can do. One of the things that I want to try to do is accomplish a range of value. I want to be able to really fine-tune how I'm landing on my paper and how much pressure I'm using. And there's a limit to it because I want to have exactly the same pressure with virtually every pencil that I'm going to use, regardless of the gradation. If it's a 4B, I want to be able to do this as well. If it's a 4H, which is a very hard pencil, I want to be able to have this same effect because I'm using the same pressure. That way I don't damage my paper. And you're also going to have a lot of differences in how this looks depending on how soft your grade is. Whether it's darker, a 4B, or a 4H is lighter because it's a harder lead. We're going to still have a consistency that I want you to become very familiar with. You can usually feel it, you might even hear it. You certainly can see it. And if you understand that your goal is to maintain that pressure and see what can happen, and then as I do this, I am coming right up to an edge, and guess what this is doing? This is giving us dimension. Because often there's something either darker coming out from behind something, or there's something going around and out of our sight where there's less light. And so it's really important for me to show, again, that gradation. Otherwise, it would just be flat. Let's go ahead and just try that and see what happens. It becomes non-dimensional because it becomes two edges. So this is the other thing I want you to really understand. We're trying to have a gradation, and yet on the other hand, we're also trying to make sure that we have an opportunity to take a value and blend it into something else. And when we show curve, we have the opportunity to show a dimension, but it's different than this. This one has two clean edges, and that's one of the terms I want to talk about often. Clean edged value. Because as I create this value, I want to make sure that it is as clean as I can get it without a line. If I have a line, it is going to destroy much of my opportunity for depth and dimension and curve and contour and all those things, because then it just becomes a flat object. And it doesn't allow me to show that maybe there's a reflective light on one side. So when I fade it away, this gives me the opportunity to show contour and curve and how light is working. So light is one of the other things. I want to establish a light direction. And so I think most of what we're going to see here is the light is coming from this way, and then it gets darker and darker and darker as it goes to where there's less light.